Hi, and welcome to Foreign Comics Calling, the podcast for all things foreign comics related. I'm Ken, and on behalf of my co-hosts Eric, Matt and Stephen, we'd like to welcome you to another refulgent episode. Today's episode is a very special one, where we cross over with Jon.Z and our very own Define 999 CBSI Global Comic Safari YouTube channel. Thank you, Jon, for allowing us to be your guests. Without further ado, here's Jon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special episode of Global Comic Safari. We're doing a crossover episode. So with me, as always, is Matt Roybal. I'm Jon.Z from comicbookinvest.com. And we've got the Foreign Comics Calling podcast that Matt also appears on, joining us tonight. So we've got Ken,
Hey.
Eric, and Stephen with us. So welcome, guys. We're going to do a little.
Awesome. Welcome.
We're going to do a little bit of talking about some books that we acquired and just share some things to look at because eye candy is always fun. We're going to talk about some of the market we've seen recently, how the global comics or how the Foreign Comics Calling podcast got together, as well as whatever else we want to wander into. So just want to thank a few people before we get going. CBSI, comicbookinvest.com for supporting us in all of our endeavors. So check them out. They're doing lots of great content, not with modern books a little bit slow and not moving right now. There's lots of archive content and lots of articles just on things you can go find when it all opens back up. I'd also like to thank our friends at Parallel Everlin in Turkey, who are very supportive of us and have hooked us up with some cool books that we're going to start giving away. And just if you need something in Turkey, check them out. So, guys, welcome. And why don't you start out and tell us a little bit about the Foreign Comics Calling podcast?
Where do we start? I guess I might as well quickly start with this. I felt that the foreign comics community really needed some sort of audio out there. There's a few YouTube videos and stuff, but needed something to take the dreariness of the day away just orally, through your ears only. So I recruited the three best people that I knew.
Two and Matt.
Well,
yeah.
I wasn't going to push that. But
I kind of just straggled along in there.
So
it's all bad for me.
Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about how your quick how you got into foreign comics, how long you've been in the market, and what you kind of what's your collecting focus?
Yeah, I'll start with that. I first got connected through Ken. I discovered his website, and it was a treasure trove of information. You know, I grew up in the 70s, 80s. I collected, predominantly Marvel, and I joined the Foreign Comics Facebook group and the magazine group. Matt quickly reached out to me, and suddenly there was this whole other community, which I thought was exciting. I had collected off and on for most of my adult life, right? Going through phases. Bought some graded books, but and some new books, and I would read here and there. But the childhood, the excitement that you felt as a child was kind of gone. It was more like, to use Matt's phrase, I'm chasing a grade on a slab, right? And that's not fun, right? That's not why I enjoyed comics. So with foreign comics, this whole other world opened up about, what was published where, check out the variations. Holy shit, they did this here and not there. And why is this one run and not that one? And it was this whole other excitement of discovery, right? And, thanks to, more veterans in the community, Ken, Matt, others, these worlds started opening up. And Ken was the one that approached me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a podcast?" And I have no idea why he asked me. I have a music podcast, which I do. So I don't know if that played a role, but I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And, my focus on that podcast, being a newer collector, is, I kind of learn from these guys. I'm asking questions, right? I'm playing the role of the noob, if you will, right? which I'm completely happy to play because I'm learning tons of stuff. Even if I know it, I pretend I don't know it so I can ask, but that's an inside secret. And Steven's probably, I don't want to speak for him, but he's probably somewhere between me and them in a way. He's maybe an intermediate level collector, but I think the combination of the four of us is,
Perfect.
anyone listening kind of has a hook, right? They can either get into it through my newness to it or Matt's veteran expertise in it, right? So I think we have a good blend. Plus, Ken with his accent makes us sound like we're authoritative.
It makes you sound way smarter,
right?
Yeah.
The bluff works very well. I must admit.
It's exotic. It's like,
love it.
And it's awesome because,
you all feel like 16-year-old girls. There's that Englishman.
For sure.
That's my intro. How I would say we come together and what the Foreign Comics Calling podcast
Can I
is about.
just interject there very quickly, Eric? Because you hit the nail on the head very much so. With I kind of picked you, my amigo, because I wouldn't say you were a newbie. You've got a massive interest in foreign comics, but it is a refreshing take, and I figured you'd be that refreshing guy on the not starter blocks as such, but you're there. Does that make sense? I think it does.
Yeah, and Eric's got. I mean, if you ever want to hear a really interesting podcast and you're into music, listen to Eric's podcast. What's I forget the name of it, Eric. The
Pods
music
and
podcast.
Sods.
Yep, Pods and Sods. Yeah, so he brought kind of also the structure we needed. I think Eric brings that structure, and that really helps us out. And we all kind of add this really good chemistry. And Steven brings, his collection of signatures and his ability to work throughout the grading companies. And I mean, we all have these unique areas where we come at it from and combine. And I mean, the audio podcast is neat also because not only do you have that, it can be a little bit more long form. So we can really dive deep, like just drown in the shit. So.
Well, I gotta say, for Steven, the guy who does an audio podcast, your backdrop there is amazing. I'm very envious right now.
Oh, thank you.
I can't even see it all, but I love the look of it.
Yeah, that's an amazing man cave right there, man.
Yeah, my entire house is a man cave. Being that I'm single, and live by myself, pretty much my entire house is a man cave. And because I have vaulted ceilings in my living room, I've got wall space out the gazoo. So,
love it.
Yeah.
It's like a gallery.
Yeah, pretty much everything from signed prints to original page pieces to, you name it. So
how'd you drift into the foreign market?
I met Tim Bildhauser is how I got into the foreign market. When CBCS started, I pretty much had been with CGC for about 10 years at the time. And I just decided to get in with the CBCS guys. And Tim Bildhauser was one of the guys, their foreign comics guy there. And through doing some shows, because I go to tons of shows, I'm one of their approved facilitators and show booth runners. So I go to lots of the shows. So I meet all these artists and writers and celebrities and everybody else. But I got to do a few shows with Tim. And in the process, he started kind of introducing me into these foreign books, which up till then, I'd never really even thought about or considered. Until he started showing me something like, what in the world is that? And then, he would say, oh, it's, the German version of this or the French version of that. And like with kids, yeah, exactly. He was reeling me in the whole time there, because that was right there for me. Yeah, because I was kind of at a point where, like Eric says, big in the grading industry, big in grading books, and I was a 9.8 junkie.
Oh yeah,
I was a 9.8 junkie. If it got 9.6, I was pissed. So I was chasing grades, just like Eric said, and that's fine if that's the way you want to collect. And I collect that. I still collect that way for the most part, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then when I started getting introduced into foreign comics, and I'd go to Tim and say, "Oh, look at this." He'd go, "Yeah, that's a great book. That's a great book." I'm like, "Yeah, but look at the condition, blah 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 blah," and he would go, "Dude, it doesn't matter. Get the dang book." Because in the foreign market, it's a whole different animal. Yes, you can find really nice copies out there. They do exist, but generally speaking, when you're looking for the foreign books, you just can't. You can't.
Yeah.
Condition has to be the next rung down. It's more important about having a copy of the
Yep.
book than you can work on condition later if you want for a better copy, but just get a copy of the book.
Yeah.
So that kind of had to change my whole thinking there, you know. So he finally started ingraining into me that whole concept of don't worry about condition,
Just get the
but
book.
just get the
Just
book.
get the book.
And then in my case, because I'm big on signatures, you get them signed and you're really golden regardless of the condition, because most of that kind of stuff, most of the foreign books out there, there's not that many people out there trying to actively get signatures on them, get them graded and all that. That's a very small portion of the foreign grading hobby right now, which is my primary focus for me personally. So yeah, that's kind of how I got through Tim and CBCS. That's pretty much what dragged me into it. And then of course, when I joined the foreign comics Facebook groups and all that, that's where I met Matt and Ken and Eric and some of these other guys and everything. And then when I got asked to do the podcast, or they were kind of throwing it out there, hey, any of you guys interested in doing a podcast? I'm like, just get me on there. I'm glad to. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, the insider. That's why I wanted Stephen.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And you know, I'll add a little bit on that. Everyone's heard my frickin' origin story. I'm not even gonna go into it. But Ken and I go way back to the beginnings, to the origins. But we had always talked about doing an audio podcast, but for whatever reason, we had pretty much done everything else, right, Ken? We had done we tried to make a foreign database. We had done a website and a forum. We'd done it all except an actual audio podcast and a YouTube show. Those were the two things that we hadn't really tried. So when Ken brought that up to me, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I mean, there's a need. There's definitely people that are going to be out there wanting to listen to all this stuff. And I love social media. I love it for what it is, but I don't know about you guys, but I hate typing long stuff. I would rather just talk about it as if we were hanging out, drinking a beer or something. And that's what I really like about the long form audio podcast.
It's a little later for Ken.
Yeah,
it is. That's my excuse.
Yeah, I'm still drunk from last night, so you know.
Yeah.
I think the podcast was a
Oh,
niche that.
jeez. I guess I'm the only one not partaking today.
There's a virtual clink of the glass, Eric. Clink. No, we definitely needed to do that podcast, and obviously, like Matt was saying, we go back a long time. I think it's all kind of blurred in the past now, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we've
done a lot.
We've done a lot. You know, Ken's been around since we started the magazine. You know, and I've watched a couple of YouTube shows talking about foreigns lately, and so it's starting to get on the front of kind of mainstream comic awareness. And people have said, you know, well, I've heard different commentators talk about when they thought it started to get popular. 3 years ago. It was around 10 years ago, but it wasn't popular. It was around this many years ago. What everyone doesn't understand is that for a while there, a decade ago, there was this hardcore group of collectors behind the scenes at the CGC boards. It was popular, but it was popular for like this subculture that was hidden. It was like under the surface of mainstream comic collecting. And it was really neat how all those people kind of found each other. They just somehow found us. There was a very popular, famous thread at the CGC boards called Comic Book Collecting with a Foreign Variant Focus. We don't use variant anymore. But yeah, that's really where a lot of this stuff started, was behind the scenes at the CGC boards. And it might not have been popular mainstream but the amount of work and effort that I'd say, how many hardcores would you say there were, Ken? Maybe about 35, 40?
At the moment, yeah. I mean, when we first started.
It was about maybe 35 or 40 super hardcore guys that were all connected through there. And we were just branching out of the world, trying to find any little bit, any information we could. And then we started producing the magazine. And then through the magazine, because the magazine had its own website for a while. And through the magazine, we started getting people. And so when it was actually popular is a hard question for me, because I don't know. I think it was more popular than people realize. It was just kind of hidden. Would that be accurate, Ken?
I think so, yeah, Matt. Yeah. A lot of people still don't realize that we actually had a physical magazine.
Yeah. I tell people that now, and they're like, "What?" I go, "Yeah, we had FCC magazine," and I send them PDFs, and they're like, "Holy shit, you guys did!" And it was way back when.
All right. So we wanted to maybe share some books just to show some eye candy for the audience, because that's what they really like versus our ugly mugs. So and you guys don't get a chance to on the video format. So who wants to start?
Yeah.
How about Ken?
Yeah, we'll go around.
Why not start with me for change?
All right, Ken. What'd you bring to show today?
Well, I don't even think I've shown the guys here what I've got here, but
Nice.
Oh yes.
So what issue is that of Mystic?
That is Mystic number 40, which is Tales to Astonish number 13, basically.
That is vibrant.
That's about it's lovely.
Beautiful.
Thank you. See, I mean, my main thing is Captain America, of course, but I do like to play around in the sandbox.
Well, I mean, you find something cool, you just kind of got to buy it.
Yeah, and I got this for a steal.
Well,
honestly.
and who knows? Maybe somebody else really wants it, and they got a cap you need, and someday that becomes a deal.
Yeah, it's going to have to be for me to sell that. It's going to have to be like some sort of golden age cap, I think.
Yeah,
it's got to be. You know.
So I since we're focused on it, I really enjoy your setup. You showcased it the other day on Facebook, I believe, and I was like, "Geez, that's awesome."
Oh, thank you.
And I'm envious, so I'm maybe gonna maybe steal some of that idea.
Well, IKEA is your friend.
Yeah, IKEA's behind me, but I didn't think about the shelves like that. I've never stored the books upright like that.
My main plan is my room. It's going to have like a divider. Well, I don't know whether you've heard of Kallax units. They do a big 5x5 shelf, which is basically each cube is like 12 inches.
Yeah.
So like 5 at the top, 5, 25 cubes in total. And all these are going to be moved into that. And then all the rest of my comics, all the rest of my comics will be moved right across the way.
Okay, so you're going to move the hardcovers into the bricks, and keep the comics like that. I like it. Doesn't look as pretty, but it's still prettier than ugly white boxes that I have.
Oh,
so
okay.
I mean, it's not as pretty.
Look fine.
It's not as pretty as the hardcovers across there, but that still looks better than white boxes piled upon themselves like the corners of all of our rooms, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, my wife is going to hate the idea. I've already broached it, and it's already had the big thumbs down.
Oh no!
Yeah, but it's basically find me some more room.
Yeah,
and we can't. So this is the way it's going to be.
So
that sounds really hard, but you
can't get rid of them. So it is what it is.
Exactly.
The wife nor the comics, though.
Indeed.
Yeah, you're stuck with both.
I don't know. I have a shovel. I have some quicklime.
Don't tell her that. It might be you, God.
Yeah, you'll be the one. We'll go. What happened to Ken?
Indeed. Good job. We've got hard clay soil, so it'll take a while to get that shovel through.
All right, Eric, did you bring something to share?
A couple things. This is new for me, which is pretty cool.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Woo.
This is it's funny because I don't collect keys, like major keys, because this is a rabbit hole to go down, right? An expensive one.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I sold my 181 a few years ago. But I saw this on eBay and I couldn't pass on the price, so that's a new one for me, which I'm pretty
So what issue number is that in La Massa?
This is volume 3, number 40.
Okay, so it's the whole 181, just to keep your podcast or viewers in the loop.
And the
redrawn.
The art is
redrawn.
Yeah.
Eric, what's the spine like on it?
Sorry?
Every La Massa I've seen, what's the spine like on it? Is it quite an uncreased spine?
It's not great. but it's it's good for me. I'm
I've seen
like
a lot worse.
yeah, it's not a conditioned thing for me. It's passable. It's reasonable. Just happy to have it. And I got these recently, which I'm pretty proud of. Which is I collect a lot of Black Panther, Luke Cage, things like that. So I got
Nice.
Greek Black Panther 1. I love that one.
Very
Kirby
cool.
Panther. So there's 1. There's 2. And these also have Red Sonja and Howard the Duck in them.
Oh.
Neat.
Pretty cool.
Oh,
I
you got
the-
a grip.
That's
Oh,
nice.
nice.
I think if you
Wow.
find Greek books, you buy them. That's my
Yep.
theory.
Love it.
Cabanas Hellas Greeks are some of the neatest Bronze Age foreign marvels, in my opinion.
Mm.
Wow.
Number 7, one of my favorite covers ever.
Wow, you got a bunch of them. Jeez.
And number 8, and I think that's the full run. So
Yeah.
Nice.
up all from one dealer, thanks to Chris Macro. Yeah, I'm real proud of those as well.
Outstanding.
Yeah, that's a killer haul.
That's lovely. Yeah.
Especially when you can get that many Greeks, Eric, in one shot, because
Yeah.
the cabanas can be tough, man. I mean,
Exactly.
so yeah, that was smart buying that whole lot.
Yeah, and it
Yep.
wasn't crazy expensive. It was a reasonable price. Like I didn't, sometimes you buy something like, I don't know that I should have spent that, but in this case, I was like, great, I'm down. Because like you just said, Matt, you could spend years probably piecing it together, but
Yeah.
I did it all in one swoop. I was like, I'm in.
Yep.
Take it.
Yep,
so.
you got to do it, especially with Cabanas books, because
Yeah.
particularly, and what's interesting about those books too is sometimes the earlier numbers in the run are easier than those later numbers. So you're like,
probably few
can't find them. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also have a Thor one from Cabanas, but the condition is, to borrow one of Ken's phrases, quite dodgy.
Nice.
That's funny.
Oh, God.
Nice.
Cheers, Eric.
All right. Steven,
Beautiful.
did you bring something for us?
Yes, actually, a few things.
All right, let's see what you got.
By the way, we should credit Steven for standing up this whole time.
Yeah, I'm
All
standing
right.
up. Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Yeah, I'm standing up.
Getting a little workout with us. Yeah.
A guy on Facebook in the group actually had posted some stuff. This was some of the most recent stuff. Actually, the most recent thing I got off eBay, and I'm still waiting for it to show up.
Those are the funnest.
But the most recent things I've gotten in, believe it or not, also fall into the Greek category. In Eintet Man, I got this, which is of course Web of Spider-Man Annual number 2 or number 1. Number 1, yeah, number 1, which is cool. Charles Vest cover, and the part of the Craven's Last Hunt run.
Love that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Craven's Last Hunt run, which is very cool. I love this cover. These two actually I picked up as a group, which I only got really as a secondary thought. The main reason I was after this group was a particular book that I've been after for a few years, actually, and just hadn't found a copy. The only thing I had managed to find, because one of the things I collect is Marvel 25th Anniversary border covers from November of '86. I love all of those, and I've got tons of them signed and graded and everything. But now I'm like really digging into the foreign side of them.
Oh, no.
And for a few years now, I've had this Greek Tomos, which is sort of like their trade paperback, which just happened to have in it, open it up to here, number 452, which has the Marvel 25th cover and the story for it in the Tomos. But what I had been looking for the last few years was an actual copy of the book itself, not like the trade paperback, but the book itself. And that's what was in this group.
Nice.
Was an actual copy of the book itself, number 452. So
beautiful.
I've been looking for one of these for a few years, and it just happened to show up in a massive thing this guy posted in Greece that had like a whole bunch of books he had spread out. Said, here's all the books I've gotten. I'm selling them as a lot. And I basically texted him and said, how about this one?
Yeah. I'll take a few more for you.
I'm like, the lot is great, but I'm not really looking for all that other stuff right now. This is the one I'm looking for. And he was gracious enough to break it up a little bit and give me this and those other ones I showed you as part of it, which I did just kind of make it. Those were cool books as well that I really like. And of course, with shipping, it makes it a little better because you're getting at least a few things instead of just one book.
Exactly.
But yeah, I've been looking for this right here for a few years, and it finally popped up in the Facebook group actually, and I was able to get a copy of it.
How many countries have any of those 25ths that we know of?
There's tons of them. I've got Navarro's. I've got Italian. I've got Greek, obviously. French. You know,
there's a bunch.
Pretty popular then.
There's a bunch of them. But the thing is that in America, there's 29 different books. There were 29 different books that had those original covers. If you go to Greek, let's say, if you go to Greece, they didn't do all of them.
Just a couple.
They may have just done a few. Like I've got one of the other Greek ones I've got is the West Coast Avengers number 14 with Hawkeye.
Yeah. Okay.
They did that one. They did this one. I know they also did, believe it or not, the He-Man, Masters of the Universe. There's one of those out there. I don't have one of those yet. I'm actually looking for one. I found one on eBay a while back. But man, I tell you what, when it comes to foreign books, I'm not as big on the condition. The condition isn't as big of a deal. But this one was bad.
It was a rag.
I'm telling you, man. I was looking at pictures of it, and I'm like, man, I want that book, but man, that is a rag. I could clean counters with that thing, and it would still look the same. Oh man, it was terrible looking. But yeah, there's a number of different countries that do those, but each country didn't necessarily do all of them. So it's a matter of digging. This is one of the things where I'm still finding out.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm still finding out. Someone will post something like, oh, I didn't know Italians did that particular copy, or I didn't know that the Germans did this particular copy. Because they didn't do all of them, but I don't know which ones they did or didn't do.
Yeah, it's more of a stumble into the world.
Yeah,
it's going to be a long journey, Stephen. You're going to keep running into them.
Yeah, I would. Let me just throw it out there on Stephen's behalf. If you see one of those, let him know. Every time I see one, I ping Stephen right away. Like, do you have this one? Just in case,
If you've got any of those foreign editions that have that Marvel 25th original bordering on it, the one that I just got on eBay recently that I don't actually have in hand yet is one of the German magazines, which there were 8 issues of, and according to Tim, all 8 of them have that border around them, but with different images other than the American versions.
Oh.
They're totally different cover art, and they're magazine format size, done in Germany, and they all have that border. But it's like they were doing a magazine for this particular, like the X-Men. The one I got is the X-Men, and they have X-Men stories in there. But here's what I think they were done in '88 or something like that, and so they've got that border, which is actually what I want. I want the border. So even though the art is not the same as the American versions, it's part of that cover. So for me, that's just as viable as any other, Marvel 25th. So
can I throw a question out there, Stephen? Does the art have variations in it? Like some of it must have text over it, must be different sizes. Is it inked differently?
Some of it is like obviously like the Greek I showed you there is a little more ash canny sized than it is like full comic size. Like the German one I just got is magazine size, stuff like that. So sometimes you'll see variations in the sizing. Sometimes you'll see variations just like with this one. Instead of the normal titling, it's their titling, and it kind of bars it, which is normal for those actually. But some of them, here, I'll show you another one real quick. Check out this one.
Have on the bottom, on the bottom right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
look at this. This is Turkish. This is Turkish, yeah. And what they did here is they actually only took part.
That's crazy.
They didn't even do it on this side. They only took part. They cropped it down and they put it on that side, and then they put the Spider-Man image on the whole darn thing, and then they put a little corner over here where the Hulk is.
Well, it's not even the same image. It's a completely different Spider-Man.
And this is actually from Marvel Tales 193, I believe, which is a Marvel 25th in America. This is the same image you see on that book.
It's just not the
But
Spider-Man.
it's formatted completely differently. It's not all the way around the cover. It's only on part of it. So there's variations like that out there.
That is cool.
I love the Turkish book.
That feels like a rabbit hole you're going to be in a long time.
Oh shit, that's a journey. I would say, Stephen, too. The German guys are really good about helping people get stuff out of Germany if they need help or finding stuff. So I would use them as a resource and see if they can find you some more of those German magazines.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be on the lookout now for those other issues of the magazine. Tim told me there were 8. I think he said there were 8 issues. and they all have that border. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Cool
definitely
goal.
interesting.
All right. I had something I'll show off. I got one thing I haven't had a chance to show yet. I picked this up on an eBay auction that I felt just went way too cheap, so I picked it up for about $20 shipped, and it's the Spirit. Jeez, this angle's hard.
That's beautiful.
Spirit 27,
La
which
Prensa.
La Prensa, nice.
appears to
Yeah.
not be in the traditional American run as a cover.
I don't believe so. No.
I've been digging around. Let me see if I can share the screen right. I don't know
Can we just accent how awesome her waist is? Look at that. It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's dainty. There we go.
No human being that has a
No, very. It struck me because it's the red dress. It's the damsel in distress. It looks though like a. Hold on, it's going to do the weird dive into space thing here. Looks to me like this one, which is the Spirit 21, and potentially just way redrawn. Are you guys seeing the image that I hope you're seeing?
Yeah.
Okay. And then there was another image that there's a Navarro edition that's also a redraw. That
definitely
changed the dress color.
Yeah,
the
dress
background's
color's different.
The smoke's different. I mean, it's just the girl is the same. So they use the same outline for the Navarro, but they changed the background. And I thought the Spirit, make sure I get the right image. It almost looks like sort of the same idea in the background. They've got the fight scene going on, but it's a different fight scene. So it's very. They just stole bits and pieces and did something. It was because this little girl's on there. Here's got the little waist too, but not quite the same pose.
And a different dress.
A knife.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's the closest thing I could find in the original run. Could just be some interior art, or just could be a complete redraw. But either way, it caught my eye as very, very cool. So
Love it.
And you said you got $20, huh?
Yeah, I was like, what?
Wow.
What is going on?
Yeah.
Wow.
$20 for a nice conditioned La Prensa is wonderful.
A steal.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, Matt, did you bring anything today, or are you still locked down?
I'm locked down, but I ended up. So before the lockdown, I had stuff in the mail, and so some of it made it. So you guys know I'm a set builder, but the horror guys are just slowly breaking my trust.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
This is the Satanas #1, and there's no equivalent anywhere else. There's a popular artist in Mexico. His name was, this is his signature. His name was Santillan, and he was a satirist. Now, I've oftentimes said that I thought he was sort of like a Mexican Robert Crumb, kind of talking about life in America but life in Mexico, and using satire to comment on that. But whereas Robert Crumb was underground, more of an underground counterculture guy, I don't know how this guy fit within Mexican culture at the time. I know he was producing a lot of different work in a lot of different places. I think he might even been an illustrator for magazines, all kinds of stuff. But this is his book, Satanas. And the interiors have lots of Satan in it, of course, but some women and like some scenes where it looks like it's kind of your classic Satan trying to tempt people to do the wrong thing, But what struck me about this cover was that he drew Satan like a really nice guy. Look at that face. I mean, that doesn't look like the type of guy that's going to get you into trouble. I mean,
no, other than the horns and the ears, but he's really got a happy face.
He's got a really happy face. He seems very approachable. Like you could just walk up to him and go, "Hey, dude, I need some help. Would you help me?" Like this is the guy you asked to help you move, right?
I think I played with that guy.
Yeah. So anyway, I saw this, and like I said, the horror guys are really. I've been trying to build up this crust to keep from changing focus, but it's not working. And this was a gift. I had forgotten this was coming. So one of the guys in the group, Peter Jacow, his name is actually though Peter Dreskow. He connected with me, and I'd helped him find some stuff, and like we always like to say, get him sick. Which nowadays with the coronavirus going around, I don't know if that's the best metaphor.
Yeah.
But he knew I built the Batman 423 set, and in his travels out there digitally, Peter found the Cinco, which is the Spanish Batman 423, and he sent it to me to say, "Hey, thanks for getting me sick." Basically, again, I don't know if that's right, and so it was just a really wonderful gift. And so I opened it up, and I was like, "Man, that's beautiful." So, not a lot of change, not a lot of change from the American, but I love it. It's a clean copy, great spine, just a wonderful gift. Thank you, Peter, for sure.
Beautiful.
So those are my two, and nothing more than that, because everything else that I have is on hold until the world gets back to normal.
Well, and that's okay. I mean, we were discussing before the show that most of us aren't buying a ton. I mean, I'm buying stuff as people that already have shipments on hold for me kind of say, "Hey, I found this." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I'll add that to it." But that's about all I'm doing is just padding shipments at this point. And wait.
I think I think it's safe. I think it's a safer thing to do.
Yeah, because who knows? Even if it goes through the system, it just may be backlogged so much that you're risking it getting lost, damaged, or just delayed. God knows where in customs under a desk. So just kind of hang out, and there's plenty of things to be found internally too. I mean, if I see something in America, I will grab it and go, but I'm not going crazy like sometimes we are.
Well, and you guys want to hear a horror story?
Sure.
Since we're on the topic of horror, so a guy from the group, I don't remember his name right offhand, but he contacted me. He had actually made a trade with Robert, John.
Yeah.
And so Robert sent him a Playboy, a Japanese Playboy 32, and a non-canon Spidey.
Huh.
He got a message that package had been intercepted by customs and was under review.
Whoa.
And as we know, I don't know what it is about Canadian customs, but I think they're very aggressive. So J.F. Tremblay, who everyone should know is one of the best sourcers in the game, another old school guy in the group, he had a situation one time where he had a Los Hombres X1 along with a Navarro that it was, I don't remember the title right offhand, but it was so rare that we'd only seen two of them. It went through Canadian customs, and an asshole took a box cutter right to the box.
Oh.
Sliced it right down the middle, and luckily his Mexican X-Men 1 survived. But that really rare Navarro sliced right through the cover. And so this guy hit me up and was like, "Is there something questionable in the Japanese Playboy?" And I said, "No, not at all. In fact, the Japanese Playboys were pretty tame by our standards."
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, "Well, I heard a horror story that some manga was stopped by our customs and inspected, and a guy got fined. I guess they have issues with tentacle porn there in Canada."
There's a lot of it going around.
Maybe they've got issues with their tentacle porn. So, with their manga. So he was afraid that they were going to stop it and not let it go through. And I said, "No, dude, that's not what I'd be worried about. What I'd be worried about is an asshole with a box cutter."
Yeah.
That's a horror story. So anyway, just on the subject of mail and why we're all trying to be extra careful. Yeah, we got to be extra careful. I mean, I am making a foreign purchase on local American eBay. So I think within the American mail system, I feel comfortable buying something, but out of country, not really.
Yeah. So
just in general, before we started recording, we were discussing, my spending has slowed down. Not that I'm an extravagant spender, but there's uncertainty, right? So that makes it. There were books that I saw that were in the $200 range that I might normally pull the trigger on, but now I'm like, I should probably wait until this passes just in case, right? Like I don't want to buy something and then suddenly be unemployed and be like, man, I wish I had
Yeah.
that back or whatever, right? So
This is it.
and it sucks because it's on the dealer side. You guys can probably speak more to this. On the dealer side, they're not doing conventions. Shops are closed down, so there's probably more to buy at a time when fewer of us are willing to buy.
Yeah.
Well, I know some people are not buying, but things that I'm seeing, I have a lot of people I know in the American market selling and buying, and they're like, there's a lot of books selling now. Not the big boy books as much, because I think that's where the money's tied up. But a lot of the small, like 10, 20, 50, $100 books, they say are flying, because I think people that usually were saving up for the cons and saving up to go to all these things aren't going, and they're like, well, I may as well buy those books I wanted.
Sitting at home on the computer.
Yeah.
Oh, I need that.
And
we were talking also that we've seen some pretty high sales, borderline record sales on some of these books. I think probably we talked about the La Prensa 180, the Big Booty Gwen.
Yeah.
180, right? Not 180, 180, not 181. And Robert had talked to a couple of the guys that had sold them, because they're members of the group and they were best offers through eBay. But one guy, well, one was about a 3.0 by his estimation, sold for $625.
Wow.
And the other one was a direct sale, I think through the CGC boards or through the Facebook, was about the same grade and sold for $600. Now we know someone that paid $600, but his was significantly nicer. We're talking the 8-9 range. Yeah. So for recorded sales that I've seen anywhere, I haven't seen anything over about 3 or 4 on that book. So it's moving. It's becoming a little more mainstream. I know a lot of people are kind of like, oh, I've heard that. I've seen that. We've all seen the wedding issue kind of blow up. I just haven't seen one in a while besides hearing about that Mexican group. Matt had pointed out a couple that I have not been able to pull over. Sorry, Matt, I was going to do that, but you had sent that there was there
was a big sale of Mr. Miracle 1 Navarro. I mean, it's a rare book. I'm trying to pull up the price that one went for. I mean, it's hard to find that book, but we never expected it to hit what it hit. So it went on to eBay, and it's the Marvela Navarro 191. And like I said, it's one of the rarer books. One of the reasons those Navarros are kind of hard to find, especially those second-rate keys. I'm not dissing on Kirby or anything, but Mr. Miracle's a second. I'd say it's more of a semi-key. But the Mexicans were Marvel zombies. They really did not. I just don't think DC really turned them on like it did some other places. So that book is hard to find. It sold for $328 on American eBay, and that is a record, I think. A lot of us were following that auction, and we thought on a good day that was a $100 book. Boom, just $328.
Yeah. Well, you got people looking for it, and you only need a handful of people looking to buy.
Yeah.
And then a book like that isn't going to pop up again, and they're like, I'm going.
And 2 people competing for the same book. Another record sale, the Russian bootleg Star Wars. I know a lot of people probably never seen it, but what it is, it's the very first Star Wars in Russia, and they bootlegged the shit out of it. And they made Chewie like a rat man, and they did all kinds of crazy stuff. It sold for $499. Wow. That is a record. I mean, even as rare as that book was, I'd never heard of it selling for half of $1,000 before. So there are definitely some records with some of the foreign stuff happening. But like we were talking about, guys, it's chaotic. It's all over the place. You got people pulling back, people. I mean, it's a weird time, man. Unprecedented times.
Right now. You've got dealers out there pushing out stuff now that they normally would have never done. Now they're pushing it out there because they need money. So you're seeing more of the stuff that was harder to find before, but now you're starting to see it getting exposed out there for sale. So you're seeing more stuff, but then you're having a mix between people who want it, and they're willing to, but in some cases they're not working, like Eric is saying, and they're trying to be careful and they don't want to spend a lot. So the stuff isn't necessarily selling for what the dealers would originally may have wanted, But if they're really trying to move it, so, but then some people, they're like, you never see this, so it's worth it. And then they go after it, and you get two people going after it, and boom, 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 boom. So so it's like Matt says, it's just chaotic.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, you never know when you're going to see something that you haven't hardly ever seen, if ever, and then you want it, but you don't really want to spend the money. But then you have two people, they've got the money and they want to get it, and then sometimes you can get really good deals, really good deals, because people are willing to sell. They just want to move it because they need money. Yeah. And then sometimes you get it like this, where you get two people who have the money, they never see this, they go after it, and boom.
Yeah. And then you have Ken Worthing's voice in your ear saying, "If you see it, buy it."
If you see it, buy it.
Yeah, Ken. You have an angel going, but what about your job? You might lose your job, and then you have this devil. His name's Ken, wearing a Strangler shirt. On
that's the story in that Satanic book, right?
Buy it.
You can eat oatmeal. No, you won't survive on proper food. No, oatmeal is good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
That story's in that Satanist book, right, Matt?
Yeah. Ken's in there wearing his Strangler shirt.
So I was just looking because I track La Prensa sales just in general, just because it's a search, and there have been so many La Prensa books sold on eBay in the last even 5 days. It's insane. I mean, there was a run of the non-canons, but we're talking just Fantastic Four stuff and all these other things. So it feels like more people are kind of looking for some of this stuff, whether it's just their key issues or their favorite covers or what. I mean, it's Fury issues and some of the minor key Fantastic Fours going, and just X-Men. Just lots of stuff selling that I used to just kind of sit. You'd see all these books and be like, $40. Yeah, I might do it for 20. Now they're going.
They're going. Well, that brings us to the question: is there new blood in our hobby right now? Has Foreign Comics Calling as a podcast and our YouTube show, and I've noticed that there's been new some of the other comic YouTube channels also have people talking about it. Is there new blood in the hobby?
Our friends at Simple Man's Comics, who are some guys we know, did a little. They do a 3 Up, 3 Down show this week. They do it every week, but they did one this week, and one of their 3 Ups was Foreign Comics, and just they're seeing all kinds of sales going, and gave us massive shout out. So thank you guys, and we appreciate that. And we've seen it on Comic Tom. We've seen it some other places, so it is gaining a little more talk point.
And with people being stuck at home more right now, I think that's adding to it, because now they're on the web more. They're looking more. They've got more time on their hands to seek and search this stuff out. So
true. So, interesting
times, definitely.
See what happens as we keep going forward with some of this, and see what time frees up, and as money gets a little freer. Do these prices look like a deal next year, or does it a little blip on the map because everybody had income and they're just buying something different,
and we're stuck inside? Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Here's one of my rationalizations in spending. Like I said, I've slowed down drastically, but I'm also not going out to eat as much. So I could free up some of that money to, if I was spending $200 a week to go out to eat, if I'm now spending $100 on foreign comics, I'm still netting $100.
Yeah, that's true.
I definitely know the spending on some of those other areas are definitely down, and you're like, well, I'll splurge on that. Treat myself.
Right.
No movies. No nothing.
Yeah. Also, it's nice to have something in the mailbox. If you're isolated, especially if you're alone, and you get something in the mail and it's cool, and you get to unwrap it. It's like Christmas morning, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
And then you can show it off and chat it with your friends online, and still all be excited.
Yeah, you can do what we're doing.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I'm just excited for things that are coming down the pipeline. We will have to kind of wait for, me especially. Because I'm not sure whether John, the other 3 guys know that I'm basically a series collector, not a key collector. I'm like a run collector. So if a publisher puts out 250 issues, I got to get them all.
You're a
Just the
true
way I'm
glutton for
made.
punishment.
Yeah. just
So,
the way
so
I'm
Yeah.
what is it that you buy besides Captain? Do you have a certain kind of angle that you focus on?
That's a really good question. As the other guys know, I'm really getting into the Alan Class comics at the moment, so I'm getting hard into that. But some of those Alan Class stuff, it's an inexpensive way of getting those Golden Age covers for a relatively cheap price. Relatively, most of them cheap. I'd say about 90% of them cheap. But there's that 10% where you've got to go big to get those issues. And I've got something awaiting. Just in the corner. It's 4 issues from the Creepy Worlds run. And if I said it was something to do with Fantastic Four, you see, which wouldn't be my normal thing.
Yeah.
It's Creepy Worlds, it's Alan Class, I want the lot.
Yeah.
I'm a greedy so-and-so.
But once you get 4, do you have to buy the rest?
Yeah, I got a fair few, but yeah, I need those 4 issues, and they're on the. I have a seller who we've made a deal. So,
You're just waiting on the world to free up.
Yeah, and the seller understands that. He's quite happy with it. So
Good.
Cool. Good. So that's my little thing. Tearing my
Anybody
spirit.
For me, you know, and I mentioned the Marvel 25th, but the other thing I really like in my collecting is DC mystery format books in foreign editions. So all the stuff like Unexpected, House of Mystery, House of Secrets, Ghosts, Witching Hour, any of that kind of stuff, but done in foreign editions.
Any particular reason, or just those are things that attract
I just love those books. I really just love them to death. And I'm a big Bernie Wrightson fan, Neil Adams, the classic Neil Adams, you know, even Dominguez and those guys, Luis Dominguez and those guys who did a lot of the covers and work and stuff in those books. They're just awesome. I absolutely love them. And I really like it when I can find those. Also, birthday books. This is the other thing that So I like collecting books that were published the month of my birth or have publishing dates of the month of my birth, which for me is June of 73. So I will look for, there's the American version of these books, which were done in June of 73. But then once you get into the foreign side of that and you're looking for these same covers of these same stories, they weren't always done in 73. You know, they were done in the 80s. They might have been done in the 90s. Who knows when they were printed in these other countries. But there's still the foreign edition of the American birth month books of my books. So I want them. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
like House of Mystery is 214. For me, it's 214, which has the great Bernie Wrightson cover with the voodoo doctor, his hand kind of coming up and the people's faces on the tips of his finger.
That's an awesome
yeah.
Really cool book. I've got an American Bernie sign one that I had Bernie sign himself a couple of years or so ago before he passed away. And I wish he was still around because now I'm starting to find these foreign editions of these books, Swedish edition and, you know, Norwegian editions and other kind of versions of it, you know, but that's another whole category there. So for me, it's like, you know, I love any DC mystery format, but I also especially love anything that's a birth month book for me.
Oh, God.
Which could be anything DC or Marvel, you know, anything of that sort, or even Warren magazines. I mean, you name it.
You guys got some hardcore sicknesses going on, man. I'm still mild in this book. I think.
Well, and it just gets worse. Steven, I'd like to say you've had some really good luck picking up Filipinos lately, dude.
Man, I've found some really good. That's the other thing for me.
You've had some luck.
I really do like. I've really gotten into the Filipinos here in the last 5-6 months, and those National Bookstore editions, man, they're tough to find. Really nice. They're tough to find, and they're tough to find. They're tough to find, period. So those really fall into that category of once you see it, if you want it, you better get it. As Ken says, because those Filipinos, condition really doesn't matter because they are so hard to get your hands on. But I've been really lucky lately of getting some beautiful looking virgin copies of those where they don't have any virgin, meaning they don't have any stamps.
Yeah, they don't have the
written on them, any of that kind of stuff. They're just clean. Nothing else stamped on them or anything like that. Those are even harder to come by. And I have found some really beautiful looking copies of those lately. I've been real happy.
I've been real jelly watching you build that, dude. I've been seeing it and I've been like, man, Steven, it's like Tim Bildhauser went and just like touched himself and then just rubbed your head.
That's cool.
You got some kind of lucky bastardism from him, dude. I don't know how you did it.
Dude, I'm telling you, this is what's crazy. The other thing we talk about with all this, with the foreign comics, is sourcing and sourcing and sourcing. Some of it is just examining all the different versions of eBay that are out there, German eBay, Australian eBay, Italian eBay, whatever, all these different versions of eBay, where you have to kind of do a lot of Google Translate and stuff to kind of work you through some of that with dealers and stuff. Some of it is just having actual contacts with actual people who live in those countries, who can help you to find certain things. But sometimes I do a little bit of that, but I also am really, really deep delving into the eBay side of things. A lot of the stuff I have found has just been on American eBay.
Yeah.
It's just been on American eBay. And it's just a matter of knowing what it is you're looking for. What is it called? How do you search it? What are the different ways you can put in to the search field to bring up the stuff that otherwise you might not see by just typing Spider-Man, German Spider-Man. You type German Spider-Man, you'll get some stuff, but there's probably a lot more on there that you're not seeing because you're not typing it out Die Spinne, or you're not typing out, a certain, there's different ways people title in their wordings for their descriptions. So you have to kind of try and mess around with a number of different ways of wording and stuff like that to kind of see what you can find.
Especially the Philippine editions. I'm
Another-
sure there's
another-
a lot of American sellers out there don't know that they're Philippine editions. They just think they're US editions.
Right.
Yeah, because they look so similar. They almost look exactly the same, other than with some missing information at the top. And they think, well, this might have been a reprint or something like that. No. This was not a reprint. This is a very, very hard to find book, Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I found successful is, if you, like Steven says, if you are doing a targeted search and you find something, right, even if it's not the book you're looking for, and you can kind of quickly identify, well, this isn't a seller I've seen a million times. I go look, if they have feedback of like 100 or something, I'm like, oh, this is a new seller, and I see what other items they have, and generally you'll find cool stuff, and they might not describe it as a professional dealer would, right? It'll say, lot of kids comics or something, right? And if you look at the picture, you're like, holy shit, this is that. Wow. And they don't necessarily.
A lot of times they don't even know what they have. They don't even know what to call it.
Yeah,
so,
but I find from newer sellers, you're more likely to find that,
Yeah, that's very true. And there's another interesting tip that I think is actually the most related to the lucky bastardism that Tim Bildhauser does. It's hard, that we all can't do. And that's that if you think about what time it is on the other side of the world. So let's say you're looking for a Greek book. A lot of people post stuff on eBay or on their auction sites in the morning or at lunch or at certain times. Tim used to always say, I have some of the best luck at 4 o'clock in the morning.
3 and 4 o'clock in the morning.
3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because let's say someone's in the Philippines and they post something on Filipino eBay, but they also click that box that lets it be international so that you find it. You can go into American eBay and look something, it'll say international sellers or whatever. Yeah, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning might be, I don't know, 10 o'clock in the Philippines. So I know that for a big amount of the amazing scores that Tim has found, a lot of times they're at really odd times when no one in America on American eBay is looking for stuff. So you have that first crack, and you're able to go in there and do it.
Yep, that is very true.
That time of the day, sort of 10 a.m. in the morning, everyone's at work. Nobody's going to be bidding.
That's true too.
Perfect time.
Because that's true. So with someone in Australia or the Philippines, they have an auction on there. Because of the time, the auction won't end at a normal time that we're used to. It's going to end at 3:30 in the morning.
Yep.
And you got to be a crazy, not normal, to stay up till that time to get it. So that, looking at you, Stephen. So that's that is a big part of it there. These little tips and tricks of how to find that stuff on eBay. Yep.
Cool.
All right. Well, anybody have anything else they want to cover, or we feel like we're going to wrap it up?
No, thanks for having us on, John.
This was fun.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Awesome. You asked us what we were collecting. What are you collecting? What's on your radar, John?
I am I'm all over the place, man. I got back into comics and then got flipping modern books, and then I got into Golden Age, and Golden Age begat this. And truthfully, what got me is I met Matt at a show where him and Tim were setting up, and then I somebody showed me the Crow International set, so I had to get that. And
Oh
then
shit!
now I try and divvy my money between independent copper that I love, some Golden Age here and there, and then whatever foreign kind of catches me is sparkly. That Spirit, I wasn't looking for it; it just happened to show up in another search. I just kind of grab what pops up and is interesting. I mean, if you,
I do that a lot. I do that a lot as well.
Yeah.
My cues out there in space. Sometimes it's something that Matt saw and's like, "Hey, you might want that." I'm like, "All right." And then they say, "What? Do you want this too?" I'm like, "Okay." And next thing you know, I just got a pile of interesting stuff. That's where I'm at. And sometimes you get it all, and then you work through. Okay, this is what I really want. I definitely went really hard on the non-canons early on, and now I've lost steam on that run because I think I'm priced out of that market. So I may just sit and call that a done collection for now.
Right.
Well, and a lot of those later ones, John, they're just not coming up. Like you've got John's got like a freaking short box of those non-canons. But the problem with that non-canon run, if you're trying to build it, is those later issues are a fucking bitch. They're so hard to find.
I got 182. I haven't seen anything past it. I'm missing a big chunk in the 170. So yeah, they're just harder to come across. The early ones you see way more often. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for coming on. Check out the gentlemen on Foreign Comics Calling podcast. They'll have an edition of this running. And thank you all.
Shortly.
And
this was
we'll
fun,
be back
guys.
with you soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you so much, John.